Hello, hello. Good evening. A very warm welcome to this live stream. I'm Tim Box, mind coach, remedial hypnotist, and anxiety specialist. We're here live on the channel to answer your anxiety questions. It's been a while, hasn't it? We haven't seen you, we haven't seen each other for a while. If you're not a member of the channel, where I have been continuing to do lives for the members, if you're just somebody who subscribes or you've just found the channel today, then yeah, it's been a while since we've done an anxiety Q&A. So this is what we're here to do. For you people that follow me, know my channel, you know this is what I do. I do videos all about dealing with anxiety, managing your emotional well-being and your mental health as well as you can. Yeah, and this is where we actually get to interact, and you can ask me your questions directly. Now, as always, when we do these lives, I have a list of questions that I've sort of taken off of the comments from a video, some of the more recent ones, that I'll work my way through. If you guys don't say a single thing to me all the time we're on this live, hello Carlos, hello Gordon, then I'll just work my way through these. But if you have something that you really, really want to find out about, hey Lisa, thank you very much. It's nice to see you too. Then anything that you want to just throw it at me, yeah, because I will work my way through these if you like, but you might as well take advantage of me actually being here in the room. By the way, if you haven't already, please click the like button. If you're not subscribed, but you would like to ask a question or even just comment on whatever we're talking about, you'll need to subscribe first. So remember to do that. Yeah, okay. Hey, Diane. So let's get into it, shall we? Right, so I've got some comments coming in already. Gordon, I've got yours at the top there. Evening, Tim. The last week or so has been terrible. I've been off work for the last 3 days. I feel a total failure and I've lost all confidence and motivation. Okay, Gordon. Now I'm going to assume that you've been off work due to feeling anxious rather than just off for like a cold or an illness or something like that. Look, I think sometimes what happens to us is when we sort of we divert our, what would you call it, like our daily activity, our routine, we change course because of how anxious we're feeling, and then that sort of piles on the anxiety because we feel a little bit, well, like you say, feel terrible, feel like a failure. And of course, whenever we then face the day, we do this thing that I would refer to as a cognitive assessment, where we say, okay, how big is the challenge, how good am I at facing challenges, how close to my best am I? So maybe the last 3 days, when it comes to how close to my best am I, you've decided, no, I'm feeling too anxious. I don't want to face work. Okay. But then, of course, that piles on that second factor there is in how good am I at facing challenges? A little bit of your kind of your self-esteem, your ability, your faith in yourself has been damaged. And as a result, the next day is that little bit harder because it's not just that you were feeling anxious yesterday, but then it said something about you that you didn't go in. My advice would be avoid concluding that it says something about you, that you took a few days away. It doesn't really say anything about you except that you felt like there was a little bit too much going on up here for you to be able to deal with what's going on out there. Yeah. And I think, none of us are immune to that, no matter what situation we're in. Yeah. And even people that said, I've never really felt anxious. We all know the idea of not wanting to face the day. And especially if we've got a history of anxiety or we're aware that our anxiety levels are higher than we'd ideally like them to be, or maybe we've been given that label of anxiety disorder or something, then not feeling like we want to face the day suddenly becomes this really, it means a lot more, doesn't it? It becomes this dramatic, devastating realization when actually it's just like, it's okay. It's okay to decide I'm not going in today. I think the danger is then we put more meaning on it than it needs to have. Yeah, I suspect the next time you go in, Gordon, you'll surprise yourself in that you can handle the day just fine. Yeah, and I think that was probably, you always could. It was just you felt like, oh, if anxiety is high, I need to then change course. I need to hang back and not go into the fray that day. When really all that does is it tells that bit of us that anxiety is something to be feared. It's something that can stop us in our tracks. Yeah, when we do get to decide that. Yeah, so I guess it's twofold. The message there is don't be down on yourself for deciding, you know what, I'm taking a break away. I'm coming out of this situation for a minute because I'm feeling slightly overwhelmed. Don't think it means anything about you. And then the next time that happens, just recognize that you do have a choice how you respond to this. It's not simply I have to back off. Yeah, learn the lessons from what you've done here, I guess is the message here. And this is the thing I always say: we're always going to take missteps, all of us, and have days that are not great. But it's what do we learn from that? Do we beat ourselves up? Is that what we've learned, that we make mistakes? Or do we say, right, I've learned something about that specific situation, those particular set of circumstances, and I feel like now I can grow as a result of that? Yeah, I mean, I've said this many times, I know, but every time something goes wrong, every time we go wrong, let's say, um, most of us put our energy into beating ourselves up for that, and that doesn't do us any good long term. But of course, mistakes are how we learn. So we've got to go through them to get to the version of ourselves that we want to be. If we put the energy into acknowledging that bit of learning, understanding it, and saying, right, I'm a better version of me than I was yesterday before I learned that lesson, then we have every chance of going forward, best foot forward, and achieving more and taking the next steps forward. Hope that makes sense, Gordon. Hope that was worth your time to listen to. Okay, let me go down to Carlos. Hi Tim, feeling really sad and low energy in this days. It seems burnout. I think the depression is something much different. Always been anxious about it. Scares me a lot. Meanwhile, experiencing the intrusive thoughts. But if I feel much better, honestly, my mind is questioning about the depression since I didn't Google the symptoms as I saw before. It's not the best idea. Um, Carlos, I don't think you need to decide whether you're officially depressed or not when you're feeling low. I really don't. I think sometimes do labels do us that much of a favor? I know all you guys have probably seen my TED talk, and I talk about the harm that getting a label can do us. And I say harm, I don't mean it's going to damage us irreparably, but it sort of piles on. I don't know, it piles on extra emotional baggage. So in the talk, I'm talking about how if we get given the label of having an anxiety disorder, we now have something else to feel anxious about now, how anxious I'm going to feel from moment to moment, and whether that's a flare up of my disorder. But it's kind of the same with depression. If you get labeled with, oh, you suffer with depression, then anytime you're feeling low, inevitably that gives you that idea that, oh, is this part of my depression? And it's almost like when we think of depression as well, it's not sadness, it's not just, oh, it's more like the inability to see the possibility of future happiness. It's got a little bit of a slightly different definition, I think, than oh, I'm really sad. Yeah. So I think if we can recognize that depression is more that, where can I go? As soon as we've been given the label of having depression, especially if we interpret that to mean I have some sort of, I don't know, irretrievable or irremovable disorder that I'm always going to be afflicted with, then that has every possibility of taking hope from us even further. As I said to somebody this very day, um, depression it doesn't just take you over and then hopefully passes at some point. Yeah, there's reasons why we feel depressed. Yeah, it's not about, well, I hope it'll pass soon. It's like, no, we've got to move. We've got to do something. We've got to take action, even if it's just to change the way we're looking at things, even if it's just to understand our journey a little bit better and what's going on here, you know? I would also say that, yeah, not Googling is a great move, to be fair, Carlos. Just don't self-diagnose off of the internet. That's the worst thing we could do. I think haven't we all been guilty of that at some point as well? Diagnosing ourselves off of the internet is just a terrible idea. I think I've got a video about that, actually. I'd be surprised if I didn't. But Carlos, I hope that was of use, some of those thoughts there. It's okay to feel low at times, especially as we head into winter. I mean, I don't know exactly where you are, Carlos, in the world. You might be in the sunniest place in the world, but I know in this country, I'm talking to a lot of people at the moment about how they're bracing themselves for the winter blues, for the time when the weather gets a little bit colder, the nights get a little bit darker, and everything doesn't seem quite as rosy. So I think we've got to allow ourselves to feel, to use a phrase, feel a bit shit at times. That's okay. That'll you'll work your way through that. I was about to say that'll pass. I mean, just use the idea that we work our way through that. Yeah, we can take action to change our outlook, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I hope that makes sense though. Right, hang on. Diane, I'm so up and down, but I've had a great week and felt anxious too, but I'm rested despite anxiety. Look, here's awesome stuff, Diane. And I think this is worth saying. We're not going to get to the point where we never feel anxiety, because anxiety is a natural, healthy human emotion. You could argue it's an essential human emotion because it's the part of us that puts our focus on the important things. Yeah. Whenever you've suddenly thought, oh, I've got to do that thing, haven't I? That is pretty much as anxiety that has reminded you. Okay. What have I've got to do that, haven't I? Yeah. It's only becomes a problem when we start to feel threatened by the thing that we're putting our focus on. Yeah. So like noticing, for example, oh, I don't know, like I've got to call somebody right now. I must remember to call somebody. I'd say, yeah, that's a bit of anxiety reminding us of that. Somebody kicking the front door down, yeah, I'll pay attention to that. But obviously, there's fear involved there because it's a threat to me. Now, the problem is when most people think of anxiety and focus on something, anxiety fires up to focus our mind on, sending the email, paying the bill, getting to the meeting on time, preparing the presentation, whatever it might be. The problem then is that because we've been told we've got an anxiety disorder or because we've experienced high anxiety, now we're less focused on the thing. We're more focused on the, oh no, and of course that's sparked off my anxiety, hasn't it? Yeah. And then we feel anxious about the anxiety. And that's the ongoing problem. So Diane, perfect response. Felt anxious at times, felt rested anyway, was able to relax and rest. Don't expect to get to a world where we just feel no anxiety because that you know what I say. It's only when we die we stop feeling anxious. Yeah, I don't mean we have crippling anxiety. Yeah, I'm just saying that because we don't regard anxiety as a problem, we have our normal, functional, everyday anxiety. Hope that makes sense. I feel I'm talking really fast tonight. I think I'm out of practice with the old lives, and also it's been a long day. It's been a long week, so apologies if it sounds a bit like I'm running on adrenaline or the last fumes of my fuel for the week. But hopefully it's making some sort of sense. Sally's, but sounds like you're human, Diane. Yeah. So Sally just said it better than me there. All you're being there is human. Right, Lisa. Following you for a while now, and can honestly say I never thought I would ever feel myself again, but your tips and videos have really helped and I finally got out of the loop and feel better. Oh, that's awesome, Lisa. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. Especially the changing the way I talk to myself, being kind to myself has helped so much. Yeah, that kind of goes back to the theme we were talking about earlier, doesn't it? If we beat ourselves up, we just end up beaten. Yeah, and I don't think people appreciate enough the damage we do by giving ourselves a negative self-talk. I think sometimes we're trained in it. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're encouraged to be self-deprecating, to have humility in that way. And I get that. We don't want to big ourselves up constantly in front of other people because we don't want to appear like arrogant or something. But then that translates into just beating ourselves up and putting ourselves down, even when it's only we're the only ones here to hear it. And we have a sort of negative bias towards our self-assessment about how we're doing. But yeah, absolutely. Well done, Lisa, then for making that change. As soon as we start putting ourselves down, we damage our self-esteem, and low self-esteem is it's one of those real key ingredients to anxiety. It's I don't know, what is it like? When you get like an agent that you put in a recipe that speeds up the process, a reacting agent or something. I would say low self-esteem is like that to anxiety. Lamb Chop, that's a cool name. Hey, Tim, I'm happy to be back. Question. I've been struggling with not being able to focus on life. Like I almost forget where I am or have to focus so hard on reality. What does this mean? I think we're going to put exhausting. Yeah. Okay. So not being able to focus on life. Like I almost forget where I am or I have to focus. So first of all, I would suggest that you're talking about maybe a little bit of, people call it brain fog, don't they? Or is it like mind fog? Is it brain fog? Something like that, where it's just our thoughts get woolly. Okay. Now, I've always thought this is one of those very natural symptoms of like feeling overwhelmed. But it's also a symptom of the opposite of that, where you're just lacking a bit of direction, isn't it? Because that's often what people say, they feel aimless. But I think what you're describing, yeah, I think I'd need to know a little bit more to talk specifically about what you're talking about there. But again, my advice, I think, would be that it doesn't mean anything for a start, because this is a problem. We notice, oh, I'm feeling different lately, or I'm reacting differently, or I'm thinking about things differently. And as a result, we then start to focus on it. I've talked to you before about the reticular activating system, in the sense of the bit of your brain that focuses on the things that apply to you. The example of the reticular activating system, the classic example is when you're in a room where there's lots of noise and bustle and conversations, like under a bar or something, and you don't hear what anyone's saying. You're just aware of the noise until somebody in one of their conversations says your name, and then suddenly you notice that it jumps out of the crowd at you, and that's what we're talking about there. Is because your mind is programmed to notice that. So as soon as you notice something that you feel, oh, is that a threat to me? I've started to feel this way. I've started to think this way. Is that a problem? Then a bit of you is like, you got a little bit of your mind there, a bit of member of your crew, as it were, who's like, right, don't worry, I'll get the red flag ready, and I'll pay attention. I'll notice it. I'll flag it up whenever something like that happens, because clearly it's of importance to us now. So, and I think, so Lamb Chop, if that gives you any sort of direction there, it probably means absolutely nothing. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, 99.9% of the time, this stuff actually doesn't mean anything. It just means we've sort of fixated on it a little bit. Yeah. And as always, there's the usual, what would you call it? Like caveat here, and the disclaimer here, that if anyone feels like they're feeling rough or they're not well, always don't feel afraid to go to your GP, to your doctor, and just talk through symptoms. I mean, this is the thing. As much as I talk in my TED talk about, the doctor not being the anxiety expert, they're the medical expert, and they can certainly tell you in pretty quick whether there's anything medically to worry about. There's loads of reasons why our mind, like, there are loads of effects that our mind could create by just focusing on the effect. I mean, the analogy that I use is the magnifying glass. Yeah. So if we really examine something with a magnifying glass, we look at it so hard that eventually we burn a hole into it. Yeah. And that's kind of what we do when we fixate. Yeah. We look at it in such, it's so close up. It isn't a problem until you look at it close up, and now you're burning a hole into the thing, so you're creating a problem by looking at it too much. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. Carlos, always mind-blowing your advice. Mind-blowing. Thank you very much, Carlos. I'm glad you appreciate it. I don't know if it's mind-blowing, but I'll take it. Sure, I'll take it. Sally, I've struggled with that too, Carlos, worrying about feeling low. I just let the feelings come and go as they please now, and it's less scary these days. Again, Sally, you've absolutely clarified what I was talking about there. You let the feelings. So, okay, I don't know if I've spoken to you guys on the main lives about this, but it's just come into my head. Okay. A client taught me this lesson. There's a poem, I think, called The Guest House. I think it's a poem. I read it anyway, and I didn't read into it as much as the client had read into it, but I thought the client had read something great into it. But anyway, I can't remember who it was by, but it was it's the idea that being a human being is like running a guest house, and every morning somebody new turns up, and the guests are like our emotions. Okay, now sometimes the guest that arrives, their company will be very welcome. It'll feel lovely. It'll feel comfortable. You can't wait to let them in, hear their story. And it's, these are pleasant emotions. Yeah. But other times, of course, the guest at the door isn't somebody we want to welcome in, because being in their presence isn't as comfortable for us. And so we resist it. And a lot of the time, it's just the resistance of it that stops them from just going on their way, because all that guest really wants to do is come in, tell its story, and then leave. But the more we resist that simple process, the longer it takes for that to happen. And I think it's a lovely little story, because isn't it the case that when we resist this stuff, we just perpetuate it? A client was telling me recently that that they had a situation at work where they felt panicked, and they knew that in this certain situation they were going to feel panicked. And we were talking about how it's not the situation that causes the panic. It's the fear of the situation causing the panic that causes the panic, if that makes sense. And she said, you know what, that makes sense to me, because every time I stop and I say, I've got to leave the room for a minute, I'm feeling unwell, and I go and sit down and try and calm down, it just sticks around. It takes it doesn't go where I'm fixating on it, where I'm focusing on it. She said, whenever I can't leave, because it's just not, the circumstances are not, it's not possible for me to leave, I just power through it, and it's gone before I know it, So in that instance, the more attention and focus we put on that feeling, the more it perpetuates, the more fuel it's given, So I thought it was quite a nice little story. Another one that somebody said to me, they went like whitewater rapids rafting, and they told them that if you fall in the water, don't resist the water, because it's going to sweep you down the river anyway. And all that happens is, if you resist it, you'll end up getting yourself bashed up. Yeah. And she fell in at one point apparently, and literally just was swept down the river and onto the bank at the end of the rapidy bit. And it was done and over, and very painless. But if you try and resist it, if you try and swim against it, that's when you cause yourself a problem. Another good analogy there. If you're in the room and you haven't clicked the like button yet, and you vaguely, like, in a small amount, like what we're talking about, or some of this chat is helping you, then please hit the like button. There is it's at the bottom of the video, I think. The thumbs up button is what I'm after. And as I said before, if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe, and feel free to share this. If you're watching this on playback as well, please feel free to share this if you think some of the stuff in this has been of value to you, and it might help other people. Please share it out, because it's about getting that message out there. Evening, Paul. Evening, Ava. Right. So Lamb Chop, you followed up on what you were saying. The feelings are like panic, so to speak, as if it's a 24/7 thing. I fight through every day, but it's a struggle. I had to walk out on dinner the other night, and I'm not sure why. I can't take trips and drive places anymore because it sets my anxiety off so bad. I've never had these problems before, and then they're here all of a sudden, just confused. Okay. Right. So again, we're talking about resisting it. Yeah. I know the feeling you don't like the feeling. So of course you're going to resist it. But ultimately, it isn't the feeling that's the problem. It's what you feel it means. Yeah. Because the feeling of anxiety, compared to a lot of other feelings, is quite mild, even when it feels like panic. Yeah. So I was on the treadmill today. Yeah, I go to the gym and I run on a treadmill now. I mean, that's where I am in life. And I'm thinking, yeah, my heart rate's up to about 180, and it's like, that's okay. I'm not panicking about my heart rate being up that high, because it's purposeful. That's what I'm meant to be here doing. Or if I went on a roller coaster at Disney a few months back, I know my heart rate was very high on that roller coaster. But of course, I'm not panicking about that, because I know the roller coaster is what's caused that. Yeah. So it's not, so these feelings, we can handle these feelings. We can cope with these feelings. We do it all the time. In fact, we do it deliberately to ourselves, because those feelings come also in certain instances with pleasure as well. So it's not the feeling, it's what it means. And a lot of the time, the only reason it's there is because we're afraid of the feeling. And I would say, Lamb Chop, if you haven't already, check out my video on the anxiety loop, because that's what we're talking about here. So here's a brief potted history of anxiety for the average human being. Okay, we go through life and we feel anxious about things. We don't pay any attention to feeling anxious about them, barely, because we're just paying attention to the thing we're anxious about. So I've got to do that thing. Oh, I must remember to do that. Oh, this big thing's coming up. I'm a bit nervous about that. But we're not worried about the nerves, worried about the thing. Then at some point, something happens where maybe there's a situation that causes us to feel anxiety, maybe at a higher level, maybe for longer than we normally would be used to it happening. And as a result, then we get to this point where, and maybe even we get the other side of it, and it doesn't feel like we've calmed down fully. Whatever has happened, in some way, it's caused us to notice how anxious we are. And then as a result of that, anxiety has become something that we're concerned about. Am I developing an anxiety disorder? Has my anxiety got out of hand? Have I got a panic disorder now? Yeah. And for whatever reason, then, of course, now every time we feel mild day-to-day normal anxiety, we notice it. Because now, obviously, there's a bit of our mind paying attention to whether we feel anxious or not. It's put it on the list of things that we are concerned about. And this is why we call it the second fear, the anxiety about anxiety. Okay. And then I'll have clients saying to me, I just want to get back to the days when I had no anxiety. But those days they didn't exist. You just didn't pay attention to feeling anxious at the time because your anxiety was at normal levels. So aim to get back to normal anxiety levels rather than no anxiety, because that's literally not human to do that. Okay. So this is what I'm saying, is that the more anxious we get about anxiety, the more anxious we get. Yeah, somebody said to me the other day, what do you think causes people to be susceptible to panic attacks? And the simple answer there is that they've already had one. That's it. Yeah, you're not born susceptible to panic attacks. It's not congenital. It's not like something in your wiring. It's because for some reason, you went through a situation that caused your mind to have a feeling of threat, your body to respond in a way that confused your mind, and then you actually went into fight or flight, the full flight or flight stress response panic attack. Okay. And then, of course, a bit of your mind said, that felt like I was going to die. That's a really worrying thing. I need to watch out for that. That's life threatening. And as a result, then anytime you feel mildly concerned, anxious, a little bit, your heart's racing a little bit more, you're sweating, maybe you're getting a bit hot, you're not sure why, your breathing's changing for some reason, all those things that your human body does every day without you noticing, suddenly you're noticing it. Yeah, because now it means something. And as a result, your mind is hitting the panic button. So that's what I'm talking about, Lamb Chop, there is that the stuff that's constant, you're trying to get rid of it, you're trying to fight through it, when really it's just because your mind currently thinks there's something wrong with you for feeling this way. And there isn't. What you're having is a perfectly healthy human response to perceived threat. And the only thing that's gone wrong here is your mind has mistaken anxiety as a threat when it isn't. Okay? Hope that makes sense anyway. The nickname Lamb Chop was given to me while I was in the Marine Corps. It's always just stuck, but I'm glad you like it. See, that's a really good how I got that nickname, isn't it? That's not like somebody was being horrible to me at school. I like that. Okay. Paul, good evening, sir. Ben, you helped me out of a dark place this year. I watched all the videos many times. You've taught me how not to fear feelings. They can't harm me. I can't thank you enough, Tim. You're very welcome, Ben. That's lovely to hear that. I'm so pleased. I mean, that's nice to hear people talking about successes they've had and getting the other side of all this. This is really good. Hey, No God, how you doing? It has been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, good to see you, mate. Carlos, agree with Ben. The advice about not having a panic disorder, but just a wrong anxiety response helped me so much to deal with my anxiety. It's one of those things I think that, we could do a whole live on the term disorder, to be fair. Yeah. It's probably one of the things that I see. One of the most common causes of high anxiety is the word disorder. We get told there's a disorder, it's occurring. And I think it gets perceived as like a thing we were born with or an ongoing state of play that can't change or something like that, when really all it means is a current state of confusion. Subconscious confusion. That's all it is. And that's why I'm saying there's nothing unhealthy about, going into a panic state. It's simply that your mind has mistakenly perceived the situation to be threatening. And in this instance, of course, when it comes to an anxiety loop, has mistakenly perceived anxiety to be a threat, But that's all a disorder. As soon as you clear up the confusion, no more disorder. You don't need to bear that label anymore, if ever you did need to. Paul, although I've had some setbacks and a recent significant setback, I've been making some significant progress on my healing journey. Thank you so much, Tim, for your part in my recovery. You're very welcome, Paul. That's lovely to hear. I'm really pleased to hear that, actually. Lovely stuff. No, God, I can't emphasize enough how helpful your tips have been, Tim. I feel like this is just turning into, let's not make it all about me, guys. You know what I mean? Sally, once you convince your mind anxiety is literally necessary, your mind settles. It might take some time, but once it's in, it's in. That's a really good point, Sally. Once it's in, it's in. Yeah. I talk to people about this all the time. Sometimes clients will say, so when we do, before we start the work, when we do the work, will I need to come back for regular top-ups? Like the sessions are about some medicine that we might need to top up as we go through life. What it is the new truth, the understanding at a subconscious level, at a belief level, knowing that anxiety is not an issue. It's just an emotion. As soon as that's in there, as soon as that your mind has accepted that, you're no longer vulnerable to high anxiety going forward, because why would a part of you create a threat response about something that isn't threatening? Yeah. So that's a good point there, Sally. Sally, you could do my job. Literally, you've had more, you've said better things than me tonight. You've had more good moments. I think you've always been a light in the darkness, Tim. I hope you know you truly help us all more than you know. You're very welcome. Very welcome. Okay, look, I've literally just got to the end of the comments and we're bang on the half hour. I normally stop at the half hour, don't I? So what we're going to do, I'm. Oh, Lisa's got something. Don't be afraid to talk about your feelings with your family and friends. I convinced myself I was a burden, but it surprised me so much how many others go through the same. Another very good point, Lisa. So many people go through the same stuff, and we're all sort of in isolation, aren't we? We're all staying on our own because we feel like it's a weakness, or we can't show that we're struggling, or that if people wouldn't understand if we shared our thoughts. You would be surprised how many people are experiencing thoughts like this and feelings and sensations like this as well. You're not alone. I think that's the important bit here. We don't need the term disorder to bring us all together as a group. We need the knowledge that human beings struggle at times. That's all. And we're much better off when we we help each other out, I suppose. Right. Sending everyone all of the strength. When's the next seminar? Seminar. What in terms of okay, you're gonna I know that was you put funny faces there, so that was a joke. But what do you mean next seminar? As in, I don't know. Let me know. To take your job, right? Brilliant. Yeah. Well, come and train. Come and train with me. Come and do what I do. It's really good. It's really enjoyable. Okay, so look, we're about there. If you're in the room at the moment and you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. That would do great because it helps more people see the video. If you like what we've spoken about, it's been of use, please share the video. You can literally go to the bottom of the video, you copy the link, you put it in any of your social media because that always helps as well. If you are watching this on playback and you're not a subscriber to the channel yet, please subscribe to the channel. I do have videos in the works. I know I haven't put a video up. The last one I put up was with my friend Tim Lindenberg. We put one up together, and it's been a while before then. But I do have such a long list of videos that I'm in the process of getting sorted for you. What happened was I was speaking at the UK Hypnosis Convention last weekend, and I had a lot of things on my plate in the run up to that as well. And as a result, something had to be shelved. And as you guys know, unfortunately, it always has to be my YouTube channel that gets shelved for a little bit when I've got too much on. I've had a lot of trainings going on and a lot of clients as well as the convention. So apologies for that. I've managed to keep the members area going, which I will always endeavor to do, but I couldn't do the lives and the videos on the main channel. But getting the other side of that phase now. So one of my top priorities is getting more videos out for you guys because there's just a lot that I want to talk about. Inevitably, when I don't put content out for a while, there just becomes this build up of things that I want to talk about. So we'll get there with that. So thank you for your patience on that one. Also, if you're watching this and you're not a member of the members area, but you think it might be for you, why not try it out? You can join the channel, and there's literally all of my extra content is available in there. It used to be serialized and go up once a week, and we used to rotate them. I've just put everything up there now for everyone, so you can dip into it as and when you want to. And even though I haven't been doing the lives on the main channel, I have been doing the lives every week for the members. So it's a good place, and also the lives are a lot more. It's just a few of us in there chatting, so you get to have a little bit more attention from me, which is always better, I think. Sally, you find the members area helpful. That's good. I'm pleased about that. But anyway, I'll stop waffling on because it's Friday night. I'm sure you all want to get back to your Friday night. But have a great week, everyone. I'm going to try and do as many more of these lives as I can, especially coming up to the Christmas time. But I will. I'll see you very soon. As I always say, always remember, be kind to your mind. I'll see you next time.